Welcome back to Combating Imposter Syndrome, our four-part webinar series on different techniques and strategies to foster a healthier mindset when it comes to imposter experience. My name is Sarah Huzar, and I am the host of the webinar. I am a social work intern in the Student Wellness and Counseling Center. This week we'll be focusing on silencing our inner critics and strategies to talk back to the voice in our heads that tells us that we're not good enough. Before we get into that, I do want to let you know that if you're struggling with imposter syndrome or anything else right now, the counselors in the Student Counseling and Wellness Center are here to support you. You could make an appointment by emailing Sherry at sherry.adams@sph.cuny.edu. So our inner critic voices often come from thinking traps, which are also known as cognitive biases, or some people call them cognitive distortions. And they usually are related to both perfectionism and imposter syndrome. So the first one we're going to mention is all or nothing thinking, also called black or white thinking. And this is somebody who is at one or the other end of a spectrum. They acknowledge that there is a spectrum, but it only has two choices. It's either yes or no. You can see from some of the examples, my life is either going perfectly or it's a disaster. You're either with me or you're against me. When my boyfriend broke up with me, I thought I had nothing to offer. So it's everything or it's nothing with this thinking trap. What's interesting about all or nothing thinking is it's not just thinking that you're perfect or a failure. It can also show up in toxic positivity. And I don't know how many people have heard of that before. But toxic positivity is where you discount anything in your life or everything in your life that's going poorly. And it's good vibes only. It's the bad makes you stronger, no excuses. And it shows up in a lot of motivational or inspirational posts or images. If you're on Instagram, if you're on Pinterest, if you're on Twitter, you tend to see a lot of these messages that are boosting positivity at the expense of everything else. So this literally took 3 seconds for me to pull these images on Google. I searched for motivational quotes. And so this is what popped up, and this is what we're talking about when we're talking about toxic positivity. Because toxic positivity is all or nothing. It's everything has to be good, everything has to be 100%. We're not going to acknowledge the other half of this experience. We're only going to focus on one side. And for some people, these kinds of quotes can really inspire them. But depending on your mood that day, depending on what you're dealing with, sometimes toxic positivity really only makes you feel worse. So when we talk about silencing our inner critic, it can help to take a moment to think about where that voice comes from. Whose voice is that? Because sometimes the voice in our head doesn't necessarily come from us. It can come from internalizing either the criticisms, expectations, or even the hopes of other people, and that can fuel the drive for perfection. So if one of your primary caregivers was never satisfied with your report card, if you had a coach who always wanted one more lap or one more goal from you, no matter how well you performed that day, if you had a supervisor who considered staying late to be normal and you felt judged for leaving on time, any of these experiences could contribute to thinking that even your best is not enough. So it can really help when you hear these voices to take a minute and think about where they're coming from. And the same is true for toxic positivity. Feeling pressure to focus on the positives often stems from these internalized expectations from other people. And even people close to us might get uncomfortable when we're sharing difficult experiences, and they don't know necessarily how to handle that. It might make them feel a certain kind of way, and they don't like that feeling. So they may respond with toxic positivity because they just don't know what else to say. So it can help when you're struggling with the voice in your head to think about whose voice that really is and where is it coming from. So when we talk too about all or nothing thinking, it's important to talk about perfectionism, because perfectionism is also perfect or worthless. And so I put two different cycles of perfectionism up here because they say the same thing, but in slightly different ways. One of them is very descriptive, and I think the other one focuses a little bit more on what the emotions of that cycle kind of feel like. And if you're stuck in that cycle, if the job is worth doing, it has to be done well or not at all. So you strive really hard and you focus, but you're never going to meet your unrealistic expectation. So what happens then is you fail to achieve your goal, feel terrible about it, think I have to try harder next time, and the same thing happens because the standard that you've set for yourself is unattainable, basically. And so here's another cycle. And this, I think, is what a lot of people, myself included, who have some struggles with perfectionism can feel like sometimes. You do feel like you're running, running, running. And where are we going to, where is the cheese? When are we going to hit this goal so we can stop running on this wheel? So one way that we can get off the hamster wheel is just by realizing that our best varies. Our best is different from day to day, and that's okay. One day we might be sick, and another day we might not have gotten enough sleep, or we forgot to eat breakfast. And it's really difficult to compare yourself on those days to a day when everything went right for you and say, okay, that is my best. And if I'm not achieving exactly what I did on that day, then I'm not achieving anything, or what I'm doing isn't enough. We really can't give 100% to any one thing and have anything left over for ourselves. Now, that doesn't mean we shouldn't work hard. I think we should. But on days when you are working at maximum capacity and you don't feel like it's enough because on a different day you had done more, I think that's where we can work on changing our mindset a little bit. And so I put the little cartoon up here, and he says, go hard or go home, or stick around and go soft, or just do you, because it's all good. And I think a lot of us get stuck in that go hard or go home. And if we are not, full speed ahead, it feels like it's not enough. And so we need to realize that, yeah, it's going to be different from day to day. And, that's normal. That's okay. Another common thinking trap related to imposter syndrome is the negativity bias, or it's also called discounting the positives. And as you can see from the illustration, that's where a lot of positive feedback or positive experiences might not register as strongly as one negative comment or one negative experience. And this is because we typically learn faster from pain than from pleasure, and also because our brain puts more attention and processing to negative things. Well, why does our brain process negative things more efficiently than positive things? Ta-da! Meet your lizard brain. Lizard brain is a term that's becoming popular to describe brain functions that might have been adaptive for evolutionary purposes, but might not always be helpful today. So these were things that ancient people relied on to keep them alive. So we can think about that as, if caveman Dave ate a red berry that made him sick, He's going to be so careful about red berries from now on because he doesn't want to get sick again. His brain has taken that experience that was negative and really made a really strong memory about that. And it's got a bunch of different things. It has his feelings, it has the memory, it has the experience of being sick afterwards, and all of that imprints really strongly. And it doesn't have to be us that necessarily has the negative experience. Um, if Cave Person Robin saw a bear and didn't hide, anybody who saw Cave Person Robin get eaten by the bear is going to be on high bear alert. And so these were things that kept us safe, but they're also things that if we let them kind of run amok and let these brain processes kind of go off on their own without cognitively thinking, is this thought helpful for me? That's where we can get stuck. I also want to point out we didn't actually evolve from lizards. It's just a really common way that people are describing these primitive brain functions. And you can see from the way that we're talking about all or nothing thinking or negativity bias that a lot of times these thought traps are automatic. Our brain finds a fast or efficient way to think about something, and it's more work for our brain to think about it in a different way. So if we're used to thinking in black or white, it can be hard to remember that there's a lot of gray in between because the brain wants to go black or white because it's easier. Even if it's helpful or untrue, our brain will default to what's familiar and comfortable. So when I say comfortable, I mean for the brain, it involves less work, not that it's necessarily comfortable for us. And one way that we can kind of start to create new patterns is by challenging these automatic thoughts. So here are some mantras for recovering perfectionists. It doesn't have to be perfect to be powerful. Done is better than perfect. I do enough and I am enough. Today I will focus on what is possible. Pobody's nerfect. These are things that we can say to ourselves when we get stuck in that trap of, oh, it's not perfect, it's not the best. And remember, our best is different from day to day. And sometimes done really is better than perfect. And another way that we can challenge these automatic thoughts is simply by practicing thinking of things in between all or nothing. So if you want to take a screenshot of this and maybe later just try to think of some things in between. What's in between good or bad? Is there anything there? Sort of good, not half bad. And it just kind of practicing these things, practicing thinking of ways that it doesn't have to be all or nothing. When our brain likes to default to what's easy or what's comfortable for our brain, and we've given it some things in the middle to work with, it'll be easier for us to choose those next time because we've kind of laid that groundwork. And with the negativity bias, it really helps to kind of, when we hear those negative things, just ask ourselves, is this true? Am I catastrophizing? And am I actually sure that this is what's going to happen? And I really like this one here in the middle. What would I tell a friend who had this thought? Because we often talk to our friends so much kinder than we speak to ourselves. And I think speaking kindly to ourselves can be revolutionary for a lot of us. And so I encourage you the next time you catch yourself, really focusing on something that's negative, are you really seeing the full picture? Or is your brain defaulting to noticing the one bad thing and not really listening to all the good things about the situation or all the good feedback that you've received? So once again, this week we have the references that were used to create this webinar. in case anybody wants to look them up. We are working on trying to get the slides, but the video will be available on the CUNY SPH Student Counseling and Wellness Center website. I also want to remind you that next week we will be talking about recovering from and leveraging setbacks. And now I'd like us to take some time to share our stories, to share our experience with silencing our inner critics. And we're going to shift into the interactive portion.